Well, good evening, Browns fans, and welcome to the OBR Postgame Show. My name is Barry McBride. Sitting next to me here is Pete Smith. How's it going, Pete?
I'll tell you, third quarter, early part of the fourth quarter, I was pissed. I am thrilled with how the end of the fourth quarter went, and I'm excited to get into it because I hate the result. But for the first time in a little bit, I was absolutely thrilled from a process standpoint of what this team's trying to do and what it suggests they're going to be doing going forward.
Well, we will get into it. Based on the early comments from our chat room, does not appear that the coaching staff and the team are being given glowing reviews at this point. But, you know, we're here to present a different point of view at times that you may or may not agree with. We'll see how it goes. But what I want to start with, Pete, is that second 2-point play that the Cleveland Browns attempted. I know a little bit about your thinking.
No, we got to go back. We got to go back to the first one. It starts when you're down 14. So the idea here is you're down 2 scores, and the belief by a lot of teams, smart football teams, is you go for 2-point conversion on the first one. The reason being is that in general, give or take, your 2-point success rate around the league is about 50%. So if you get the first one, and we don't know what happened with the first one because Shooter Sanders obviously botched the snap. But if they score there, now it's a 6-point football game. So if the Browns score again, an extra point, now they have the lead, as opposed to you kick an extra point, which everybody wants to assume is 100%. You're always going to make the extra point, and Andre Smith's done a great job with that. But if you miss it, obviously now you're down. So that's why you get into the thought process. So you take a 50% chance on the first one. You obviously missed it. Sanders botches the snap. The Titans try to return it, and they get stopped. The Browns are able to get the ball back, go down and score again. Okay, now they need to score a 2-point conversion. Well, here again, if it's a 50% proposition, the idea is that you take 2 50% propositions, you are going to get one of them and ultimately end up at your 14 points if you didn't get it the first time. The idea here is obviously if you get it the first time, you're going to beat the math. So we don't know what they were trying. You know, we could probably piece together if we had the tape and go through what they were trying to do the first time, but we don't know because they botched that. The second time, even in our insider chat earlier in the game, one person who you are quite good friends with said of Quinshon Judkins in the Wildcat, everybody knows where he's going. If he's back there by himself, they know he's getting the ball. So the Browns run this play where Quinshon Judkins is clearly supposed to pitch the ball to Gage Larvadain, who's going the other direction. They have all the blocks set up. Gage Larvadain walks into the end zone. They get the 2-point conversion. It obviously doesn't work because Quinshon Judkins suffers temporary insanity. This is sort of, in many ways, a encapsulation of the Browns season. We are leaning on rookies, trying to get them all the experience in the world, and it bites you. It bit them a number of times in this game. It also carried them to where they ultimately got in this game. It's, you know, the Ernest Biner comparison. You know, Ernest Biner obviously loses the ball in the AFC Championship, and the immediate reaction after that from the owner was, we don't get there without him. Well, a lot of that is how this ultimately played out. But that is the thought process, that if you are going to get 2 shots at this and you think you're about 50%, and you can make the argument and you go, well, the Browns offense isn't good enough to get 50%. And I'm not going to disagree with you necessarily. But what I'm going to argue is, and everybody can say results-oriented business. You can say the ownership can fire Kevin Stefanski over this call and losing on this. And I won't argue with any of that. I would just say, I want my coach, whoever that coach is, if it's Kevin Stefanski or somebody else, to do this exact same thing if they're presented with this situation, because this is what you should do. And I want the Browns, if it's Quinshon Judkins, if it's Dylan Sampson, if it's Gage Larvadain, if it's Shedeur Sanders. I just named 4 rookies who are integral in this comeback. I want them to get all these reps. Andre Schmidt kicking extra points doesn't do me much good. And then the last part about this whole thing, losing sucks. I mean, I hate losing. But if you're the Browns, oh my God, wide open. If you are the Browns, 3-10 is probably more useful for you than 4-9. It's not good. You don't feel good about that, and losing to the Titans, who now are at 2 wins, they need a whole lot of things, and losing sucks. And again, you can justify firing whoever you want based off their losing and all these things. But the case is simply made that the Browns are probably better off overall being higher up in the draft order, which this gets them one step closer. So I understand, like I said, Kevin Stefanski could absolutely lose his job over a call like this one. But I absolutely would 100% sign up for doing that again, given the same opportunity. I would hate for the Browns to make a change at head coach and put somebody else who's not going to do this. This is how it's done in the NFL. This is how smart teams operate. So it sucks that they lost. They bet on rookies. This is their whole season, betting on rookies on offense, and it didn't work. That's not why they lost the game, but certainly that moment is going to allow people to absolutely crush Kevin Stefanski and anyone else because of the results. But I'm thrilled with that. That was actually the most interesting part of this game from me, just as what are the Browns still trying to accomplish this season? And they're trying to win football games. They're trying to get better. And if they're going to lose, and I'll talk about that with the defense too, for consistency's sake, I want them to take risks and try to do things that are going to make them move the proverbial ball down the field in terms of getting smarter as a football team. I think these reps are valuable. So that's my case that people will undoubtedly disagree with and tell me I'm an idiot, which is fine. But that's 1,000%. I'm on board with the process here.
Well, here's a photo of the play as it happened. And what we're getting here is what looks like a wide open opportunity for Gage Larvadain to coast into the end zone.
Right.
Should Judkins throw on ball.
Little tough on the still photo, but the end that's up top here is going to go up the field and go past. There's a blocker here. There's obviously the left tackle has this guy reached. He's in a great position. He's going to seal him inside. You've got multiple defenders all chasing Quinshon Judkins. Even on this backside, you've got one defender over here, and this guy's going to be in a position to block him. Gage Larvadain is going to if this play continues, he's going to have a wide open hole inside of this tight end and walk right into the end zone. It's there. It's there every time if Quinshon Judkins just is aware enough to realize what he's supposed to do. And I don't know what the communication was. That is an issue where you can talk about this, but this is clearly a play the Browns had holstered. The idea that, they took the ball out of the hand. They went into the game with this ready to go. They had worked on this. They had said, we're going to get in a situation. We've been showing Wildcat all year. We've had controversies over the notion of them running Wildcat all year, and they set this up the entire season, and they do the thing we've been waiting for them to do, which is use Judkins as a fake tell. And for whatever reason, he tries to keep it. And you can see it, like where Quinshon Judkins is running, there's going to be multiple defenders here because the Browns are all blocking the other way. It's a good play design. They've been working on this. It's not like they drew this up in the dirt before they tried to run it. So I get it where people could be like, oh, Shedeur was doing great. Shedeur was doing great. There's plenty to talk about with how well Shedeur played at points, including how, the 2 touchdowns that got them there. But they didn't take him out. This was a play that was in there. They had worked on it. And Shedeur was in there for the previous 2 point. I don't know what would have happened, but he dropped the snap. So that was the shot for Shedeur, unfortunately, and we didn't see him capitalize, which is interesting because obviously previously when Harold Fannin fumbled the snap, there was this whole to-do about, well, you can't have skill players take snaps because quarterbacks won't drop the snap. And then we have the quarterback drop the snap. So believe me, I understand the frustration. Losing like this sucks, but it is a smart process and the right way to operate and to try to get this team to get better, which is ultimately what they're doing. The whole thing, the question that we don't really know the answer to is, what does Jimmy Haslam really want? Does he want a few more wins, or does he want this team to be in position to potentially get the kid we all watched against Ohio State or whoever? We don't really know the answer to that. But what we do know is one of the big thrusts for this team is rookie development. And we're seeing it. As much as this game is incredibly frustrating for any number of points, defense, the lull where basically the second half where the Browns offense just was done for about a quarter and a half before waking up again at the end. You're getting those things. There are absolutely things to criticize, and there's stuff I'm happy to get to, but like in terms of what you're trying to create for this team and trying to get them to do, this is all part of what I think is a smart process with a bad result. And that's how these things go, unfortunately. And when you're not good, the Browns aren't a good football team, you're going to lose on some of these, and they may be better off relative to draft position, even if I'd rather have won the game.
Well, let me offer some of my thoughts on this. First, with regard to 3-10 being more useful than 3-9, or 4-9 rather, aren't we in a situation where it's going to be very difficult for the Browns to attain that top pick? They're simply not going to lose quite enough to secure that top pick, and therefore we would have been in better shape with Tennessee having that top pick, so we can trade to them if Fernando Mendoza is what we really want.
Unclear, because obviously right now the Giants, according to Tankathon, have the number 1 overall pick, and they have a quarterback theoretically. Tennessee's now the 2nd pick, and they have a quarterback, but they're both at 2 wins. The Browns are at 3. If the Tennessee, if Cam Ward gets hot, and I think Cam Ward's an really interesting quarterback. If they get hot and they somehow can pull off another victory, or are the Raiders likely going to take a quarterback? Maybe, but ultimately, the Browns are now of the teams in the NFL. They are now 2nd behind 3 teams that have 2 wins. So that's where this team is at. They're 2nd. There are 3 teams with 2 wins. The Raiders are currently playing the Broncos, I think. And the Browns have 3. If you were going to lose to one team that was going to sort of dramatically alter the odds, this was the team you lose to. Again, I don't like losing. I don't like how this play works out. But if you are if that is your goal, this gets you closer than anything else. And they may still have to trade. They may still be in a weird spot. If, Ty Simpson decides to go back to school and Dante Moore doesn't come out, things could get a whole lot weirder. But here's the thing. What if they both come out? And now suddenly you've got a whole bunch of guys and the Browns can get who they want. Whereas, again, more wins makes this thing a little more complicated. It's not great, but it's sort of where they're at.
Yeah. I have, on the 2-point plays, my biggest concern is not so much the design of the play, because I think it's pretty obvious that everybody in Tennessee is expecting the play to go to the right, with, whatever directions Judkins is going, that's where the play is going to go. So you reverse it and you're able to get some open field. I think that makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make sense to me is the fact that we're running with a offensive line that has 2 starters out. We have a backup center in place, Luke Whippler, who has not been, snapping the ball to Shadur. And we run, first play, we don't know what the play was going to be. Second play is a relatively complicated play being run by a bunch of rookies with an offensive line that is really beat up and dealing with, second teamers in there, trying to hold a very stout defensive line of the Tennessee Titans. So I guess that's what bugs me about it, is that, it seems like it was a really well-designed play, called at the right time, but just executed by people who have a low probability of pulling it off.
I agree. I think your analysis is 100%. The question you have to ask yourself is, what's more valuable to you as a football team? Is it getting the opportunity to try to make those plays, or is it playing safe? You get in some of these games, like if you're just watching a random game and you have no invested interest in the teams they're watching, what would you rather watch? You'd probably rather watch a team go for 2. Or we watched this earlier in the game. Like there was this situation where the Browns got in 4th and 2, and then they tried to get the Titans to jump off sides. They drop back to 4th and 7, and the Titans go off sides when the Browns punt, and the Browns just decline the penalty. And there's people sitting there going, well, why aren't we being more aggressive? I didn't have I wouldn't have had a problem going for it for there, but I was sort of also of the mindset, well, Cam Ward's a rookie. You got to really what you think is a good defense, and you'd like to sort of take advantage of it. But like, there's still this mentality of, hey, why aren't we being more aggressive? What do we have to lose at this point if you're the Browns? So get reps with guys that Quinshon Judkins made a boneheaded play. he's clearly part of the foundation of this team moving forward. Harold Fannin, clearly part of the foundation of this team moving forward. Shedeur Sanders is trying like hell to prove he's part of the foundation moving forward. Give them as many opportunities as possible to make plays that are going to sort of build something that's going to matter when you need it to matter. Because let's say the Browns are better next year. They better be. And they are in games like this. These reps, these situations they've been put in are hopefully going to give them some more earned confidence, understanding situations, the development that we hope is going to happen here. The mistakes you make here is hopefully going to pay off in the future. Will that happen? To be determined, but it's a defensible process from that standpoint, even if the result is terrible. I simultaneously, I didn't like what I saw a lot from the defense in this game. But here's the thing, I've been saying once this year started heading south, the Browns could play, before the Dolphins game, the Browns were playing very safely defensively for the most part. Jim Schwartz is very aggressive, but playing safely. All of a sudden, they started getting really more aggressive, and that was partly player-driven, or at least players said that was a big push from them to get the Browns to be more aggressive. And my takeaway at that point was lean into it. The Browns have a hell of a fastball, to borrow Jim Schwartz's terminology. They need to work on other stuff. And even though there are situations where I'm sitting there going, why do the Browns have a one-backer box that then gives up a 35-yard touchdown or whatever it was? At the same time, I'm also sitting there going, yeah, man, this is really irritating me. At the same time, I want them to figure out what else this defense can do. I don't want them to just do the same thing over and over again, because we've seen what happens when they do that. They ultimately will run into a situation where a really good quarterback and a good offensive coaching staff and a line that's good enough, we've seen them get picked apart and just get thrown all over, whether it was the playoffs against the Houston Texans, whether it's been the Ravens earlier in the year. So I want them to mix it up. And if it's going to result in some busts and some screwed up plays and mistakes by players, I'm willing to live with that for the sake of their development. It's not fun to lose like that. And there were situations where you're sitting there watching a running back who didn't have 100 yards the entire game run for 65 on one play. But I'm willing to sort of be like, if this helps you develop an off-speed pitch, if this gets you an identity, if this puts these guys in the situations where they're going to be better for it overall, then I'm willing to live with that issue. Because obviously I think most people, beyond whatever happened at the end of the game, which certainly matters, and well, I've covered it, but certainly matters, and you can, again, make the argument if you want to fire whoever you want. But on a sort of a antiseptic overall picture, you'd say the defense wasn't as good as they should be given the opponent. Yes, there were a couple turnovers that were hugely costly. Rookies made mistakes. Shedeur Sanders made a really bad interception. Dylan Sampson makes an inexcusable fumble. Okay. And that put them in bad spot. And then they didn't do very well in those situations and they gave up points. But what I'm hoping to take away, what I was really happy with was using Dylan Sampson and Shedeur as examples. They both made incredibly bad plays in this game. And I was thrilled that Dylan Sampson bounced back and made two, maybe three big plays that helped them ultimately get in the game and have the potential to score and try to win the football game. Shedeur Sanders throws the worst play of his game was the interception. But he came back and did some really good stuff. And I thought he actually, the commentary of the game was how much he struggled against zone coverage, which I thought was fair analysis for most of the game. And then all of a sudden he just took the profit and did some smart things by taking underneath passes and made a couple great throws. And that's what we want from this team. As much as losing sucks, as much as the result of this game is terrible, that's ultimately what we want. So if I would think, despite how I think underwhelming the performance was, and I include Myles Garrett in that, I don't think he played particularly well in this game, despite getting his 20th sack, which is great. I'm thrilled for that. But I don't think anyone's going to come out of this game and go, well, the Browns have a bad defense. So through that lens, you then are going to say, well, the Browns don't have a bad defense. They have a pretty good defense. Didn't play well today. But what we did get to see was the offense, despite the lulls at points, scored 17 points in the first half and then come back and score whatever we ended up, the 12 to sort of close out the game or whatever it was. we saw a life from an offense, like from a wholesale approach. The Browns scoring this many points in a game, you would have, if I told you the Browns were going to score this many points in a football game, you said, oh, they win easily. Well, they didn't, and they may be better for it just by virtue of what they're trying to accomplish with this season. Even if I hate different things, again, I can nitpick. There are things. Jim Schwartz gets a whole lot of credit for stuff. There are things he does that drives me nuts. I thought the run defense in this game was particularly frustrating in some of the stuff he was doing. Again, I'm of two minds of this. I want them to be risk-taking and figure out what else they can do. It also felt to me like Jim Schwartz was trying to get Myles Garrett's sack record in this game at points. Mm-hmm. They were so aggressive that it was, to me, I think, I don't want to say reckless, but it just allowed them to get beat at points. Obviously, the Devin Bush interception was a really good design, but there were a whole lot of plays just sitting there and thinking, why are they throwing this many guys at Cam Ward? And the simple answer will be, well, he's a rookie quarterback. He's going to have trouble dealing with that much of an issue. But realistically, he did okay under the circumstances. So you'd think you probably want to adjust, be a little bit safer, and deal more with the running game. And they didn't do a great job with it. And I don't, obviously we dealt with injuries again here. Denzel Ward at some point left the game with calf injury. I don't know what his status is. Unfortunately, we think Ethan Postic probably done for the year, and maybe that may be it for him as a Brown, unfortunately, if it's an Achilles. David Njoku left with a knee injury. Though that part of it sucks. Cedric Tillman, God only knows, got thrown into a car accident. But yeah, I mean, again, I hate losing. If Jimmy Haslam says, well, that's it for Kevin Stefanski, I will understand, but I don't hate what I saw in this game, at least at points.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the best that you can say. Orange Dog 64 just lays it out there. He said the defense sucked today. I tend to think that there's a little bit of, what we experienced with the 49ers as well. They were being, the Titans were being given short fields, and they were being given short fields by the special teams, which were horrible again today, in my opinion, and by an offense that made some key turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, I can say the special teams didn't lose us the game, but they never inspire confidence. I think that's the growing theme. And the block punt was a disaster. Obviously, Mahmoud Diabate. I mean, getting into the minutia of pass protection, they didn't get the right count on the left side. Diabate didn't get the guy he was supposed to get. He left free and blocked the punt. So it just adds to Bubba Ventrone's legacy. As I've said all along, the second the season's over, I would show him the door, but I don't gain anything by firing him now, so I don't see much point. I don't think it's going to fix that situation. And I'd rather, if you're somebody who doesn't like Bubba Ventrone, you're probably happier that he has to answer questions in press conferences every week as opposed to getting to go home early and spend Christmas with his family. The mistakes are obviously challenging. Dylan Sampson's fumble put him in a really bad spot. The interception was a really bad spot. I felt like the defense had struggled with their footing the entire game. I mean, I felt like both teams didn't have great footing, but it just felt like the Browns were slipping constantly on the defensive side of the ball and just never got right. Like, just an example of a guy who I thought played reasonably well, but still didn't look like himself was Carson Schwessinger. It just at times it felt like he was on an ice rink dealing with some of the challenges he had. And credit to the Titans. I think they came up with a good game plan for what the Browns were doing. I thought Cam Ward did a nice job in certain respects, but you just look at the talent the Browns have versus what the talent the Titans have in that matchup, and you obviously come away thinking, man, they should have done better than that. Was Malik Collins that much of a difference maker? No. But, one game without Malik Collins, you sit in there and go, woo, that looks like a big loss. But, yeah, I mean, just sort of how this thing went. But, I mean, this is all before we get into the biggest topic of this game, which is the quarterback.
Yeah.
And
which we will get into.
I think, let's be honest, I think this was a game of three acts for Shedeur Sanders. Act one, basically the first half. I thought he took the issues he had last week. I thought he built on those He was making throws that he wasn't making last week. Obviously, had 3 beautiful passes. All 3 of his touchdown passes were tremendous passes.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, they get off the interception return Devin Bush had. They end up in a situation, or that was the screen to Judkins that set that up, where they got the little dump pass to David Njoku. Great ball. Unfortunately, Njoku left with a knee injury off that play. No idea what he did. He did a great job of turning over to make sure the ball didn't hit the ground to secure the touchdown pass. But it was a really nice throw. Second touchdown pass, Shedeur finds Jerry Jeudy this time on sort of a skinny post, and it was a really nice ball. And I think it was actually going to be an even better ball. There was a safety that was trying to close from the other side. He just straight up fell down, which is what I think enabled Jerry Jeudy to ultimately score. Had that not happened, I think they still would have completed the pass. I think it would have more looked like sort of a dramatic action shot for Shedeur Sanders. They sort of threw the ball between 2 defenders. But it was right on the money, right where it needed to be. I just think if that had happened, he probably would have gotten tackled as opposed to being able to run into the end zone. But that was a play that he didn't make last week that I said at the time, he's going to keep taking those swings and he's eventually going to hit it. A week later, we got what we wanted. And he did better in the pocket, still made some curious decisions, but at least he was willing to throw the ball away and just get out of plays. I think that served him well, allowed him to sort of get into situations that were either not behind the sticks or just let him be aggressive and rip it. I thought he, by and large, made pretty good decision-making with the passes he threw. I thought he managed the game well. And then coming out of the half was sort of the second act where the Browns offense just sort of disappeared. The Titans sort of switched into playing a heavy zone. One, Jeffrey Simmons just basically took over the third quarter and the early part of the fourth quarter. They just had no answer for him. And then the other part was I don't think Shedeur was seeing the field as well because they switched the zone. He carved up man coverage. I thought Mark Schlereth's analysis of that was dead on. And they obviously had a number of 3-and-outs. He had the intentional grounding penalty, which was just silliness on his part. It's the screen's not there. His mentality immediately should be just throw it away. He sort of approached it like maybe there was a shot that he could scramble for something, that there was going to be a hole. Just, it's not there, throw it at the guy's feet and move on to the next play. Unfortunately, they lose the down and the 10-yard penalty and put them behind the sticks, and they have to punt there. And that was sort of the way that went. And the Titans did what every defense is doing. They're not going to let Quinshon Judkins beat them, which is one of the reasons I was so happy they had the screen pass that worked, because that was basically his day. And then Act 3, the Titans go up 2 scores off the blocked punt into field goal. Everybody thinks the game is over, including seemingly the Titans. They start playing soft zone. They just drop everybody into coverage. And at that point, their pass rush disappears. Shedeur Sanders has time to read it, and he just starts picking them apart. And particularly, he picks them apart on like underneath stuff to backs and tight ends and the little underneath part of the field. And all of a sudden, we see the thing we never get to see for the Browns offense, which is space everywhere, because the Titans are playing backed up. They don't want to give up the big play. And then they don't have much pass rush. Just gets to sit there and see it and hit Dylan Sampson, hit Harold Fannin, and make these plays and just work his way down the field. Unfortunately, whether it was Sampson or Fannin, they're really good after the catch and were able to create some yardage. The Tennessee Titans, frankly, did what the Browns usually do and got just incredibly bad penalty after incredibly bad penalty, which personal fouls, face masks, all this stuff that sort of allowed the Browns to just cruise right down the field. Shedeur Sanders hits that pass. The first one he scrambles, which is a good decision. And that is where Shedeur Sanders' mobility is actually really a weapon. He's not a great athlete, but you go back to college when he was at Colorado, he's really good inside like the 10 to 5 yard line where he can find a little hole. He's more than athletic enough to sort of get there and score a touchdown. He sheds a couple tackles, loses part of his shirt before scoring the touchdown. And then obviously they have the botched first 2-point conversion. The defense does its job. The Tennessee Titans were more than happy to just run the ball out, try taking as much clock, and then punt it. And then again, right down the field, and then Shedeur Sanders hits a beautiful ball to Harold Fannin. And Fannin does a great job. Big pause, squeezes the ball, tucks it to the ground, and suddenly, the Browns are in that shot, and they have that play call waiting for them. They don't get it. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. But like, in terms of really good, productive first half for Shedeur, just the ratio of good versus negative plays was right where we want it to be, especially for a rookie quarterback. Second part of coming out of the second half, third quarter, early part of the fourth quarter, not a good ratio, wasn't making a bunch of positive plays and was making negative plays. We saw this last week too, where he started getting himself in trouble. And then the last bit, I don't think he had a single negative play. I think it was nothing but positive plays. And some of that you can attribute to the fact that Shedeur Sanders is a really good in what amounted to be a 7-on-7 quarterback. There wasn't a whole lot of pass rush, although he did I want to give him a lot of credit for how he sort of maneuvered in the pocket. I think he did a better job of sort of feeling where space was for him to operate and just seeing the field well. He saw where the holes in the defense were, made some good throws, put them in position to compete and try to win the football game. And, you were in the same insider thread I was. First quarter, fans were ready to fire everybody. Game's over. Don't even bother. Some of those fans mysteriously showed back up when it got bad in the third and early part of the fourth quarter to say the same things. And all of a sudden we have life. And like, again, losing sucks, but like you want to say, what is this team made of? Do they have the ability to fight back? They fought back from what could have been 14-0.
Mm-hmm.
Managed to fight back, get down to 7-3, then it becomes 14-3, and then the Browns score 14 points. Suddenly, life is good. The Browns are up. They obviously give the Titans 14 unanswered points, and then allow a situation where it's too much to bear, but they fight. They have something like the idea that the immediate response most people have is these guys aren't fighting for this team. They don't want to win. All this other stuff. They fight. They're just not very good and occasionally not very smart. And unfortunately, that's sort of how you end up being a 3-10 football team is the combination of factors of not good and not smart get you there. So sort of, that's where I can totally understand where people are like, screw this. I'm ready to do just about anything else with this team, fire everybody. But I sit here and I watch and I go, I'm not sure they're going to do that. And these are the reasons I see why they probably won't.
Right.
And sit here and look at this, but we'll see. We may wake up tomorrow and Kevin Stefanski may be out of a job because of this whole situation. But I still think I like the way they operate this football team. I just wish they were better at it.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. Not good and not smart is a bad combination. It's how I got to where I am today, but for most people, it doesn't work. Here's some quotes from our comments. Running Beard 7380 says, so glad to see 12 have a breakout performance. Not perfect, still something to build on. He should be the starter going into 2026. And no, they shouldn't draft a quarterback. We have similar thoughts from Jeffrey Champion. Says, Shedeur Sanders continues to improve. Why would we draft a quarterback? Are you anywhere close to that point, Pete, in terms of saying, well, maybe we can get by in 2026 without trading everything to get Fernando Mendoza?
No. I mean, and that doesn't mean I'm necessarily saying they have to trade everything to get a quarterback, but one, we're going to get more games to watch, better opponents to watch as well. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, as we wanted this for whatever rookie's going to go on there. We wanted to get a soft landing. You got the Las Vegas Raiders, the 49ers, who are a shell of themselves on defense, and then the Tennessee Titans. Like, that's a really good slate for a rookie quarterback to sort of start to figure himself out. It's not going to be as easy next week when they have to go on the road and play the Bears. They're going to have to play the Steelers again. They're going to have to play the Bengals again. We're going to get more information. We're going to learn more about him. And if the Browns are in a situation where they win themselves out of position, I'm not going to say don't take a quarterback. My answer is going to be get a veteran quarterback and then add pieces, parts.
Yeah.
You know, draft a big time receiver at the top of the draft, fix the offensive line, get a veteran in here that can help. And at least that also gives you the ability to say, Shooter Sanders, show me you can be the starting quarterback, but I got to have something here. I can't just hand you the football team and say this is going to be it, because he is wildly inconsistent. There's real talent there. He can throw. He's an incredibly gifted passer. That's never been in doubt. And particularly when you don't have a pass rush and he's able to just pick apart the field, he's pretty good. But what's going to happen when he's consistently under pressure? You know, obviously Dylan Gabriel looked terrible against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to get that type of thing again. The Steelers are really good against young quarterbacks. They struggle largely against veterans because guys who have seen it, guys who have passed the test and sort of figured everything out, that's not going to be the answer. So, you know, I'm hoping Shooter continues to improve. I hope he gets better every week. I hope he gets to a point where we're sitting here going, man, there's a real conversation to be had. But I'm certainly not there now. I'm thrilled that he got better. I'm thrilled that we got to see him. And that's part of the reason I'm thrilled with the Browns doing what they're doing in terms of process, because it allows them to see what a guy like Shooter Sanders can do, because he played on balance, played well, gave them a chance to win, did everything we would want a quarterback to do late in the game. So good. Hopefully he can build on it. Hopefully he can stack games. Yeah.
Shooter finished 23 of 42, sort of during the Act 2 you were describing, Pete. He went under 500 in terms of completion percentage, but he finished strong. 364 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 ill-advised interception, overall rating of 97.7. I think you could argue that amassing 364 passing yards would have won us a lot of the games that we had played this season.
Yeah.
And, you know, anywhere close to that production through the rest of the season has to get your attention.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, here, the bottom line is, and obviously, look, the circumstances sort of allow to inflate numbers. The fact that the Browns had to go down the field and defenses tend to, what I think is probably the stupid thing, which is they loosen up their coverage and they allow teams to sort of move the ball on them. But the bottom line is, if I just said you're going to get almost 350 yards from Shooter Sanders, you assume, oh, the Browns won by multiple touchdowns, given their defense. But that's the point. You want them to build. You want them to get better. And you want them to see if this kid can do it. We're going to get more games. They've got 4 more games left to see. And he's doing nothing to – I mean, I should say nothing. He does some dumb stuff that will drive you nuts. I mean, he will drive you insane as you watch him with some of the stuff he will do. But there's nothing that sits there. And you're not watching this and going, man, we got to take him out. You sit there and go, man, he can't do that. The interception was ridiculous. He can't turn his back to the defense, as he will occasionally do. But you're also sitting there going, when it's going, it's fun. Like, you can enjoy watching this team play, and even if they lose, and it drives you insane. But the bottom line is, you're probably going to watch next week because you want to see what this kid does again.
Exactly.
Which is something that you can sort of work with. So, yeah, I mean, we are ways away from that situation. And again, if let's say the Browns find themselves without trading in a situation where they can take the quarterback that they want, whoever it is that they want. If the worst thing that happens to this football team is they have too many good quarterbacks, I will exist in that world happily. Like, fine. Right. I will live with multiple good quarterbacks and options, and then they can find the best guy and potentially trade somebody else for a haul of picks. But I don't want to be in a world where we're sitting there going, man, I hope he can kind of do it if I squint hard enough, and all this stuff. And then you don't, and you sit there and pass. I don't want the Jeff Garcia scenario. And obviously that was a little bit different. The Browns paid him a ton of money at that point. But we still sit here and go, well, what if the Browns had just taken Ben Roethlisberger? That's the thing you don't want to run into. So got to see what he does. Got to see what he can do. But what gets lost in all of this is Harold, I don't know if he lost necessarily, but just the way the game went, is Harold Fannin, who now has broken Ozzie Newsome's rookie receiving record for tight ends. and I don't even know how many yards he ended up having. I
114.
Yeah, which is his career high.
Yards.
Career high. Now he's well over 600 for the season, and he's been great. 8 of 11 on targets for 114 yards. He had the 35 yards completion. He had a touchdown. They got him in the 3rd round. He is doing everything that they could want. Jerry Jeudy, I think he could have had 125 yards last week if Shedeur just hit him on the plays he was open. He had 76 today with the touchdown. Obviously, that was an explosive play. That was the Jerry Jeudy we've been waiting for. My question coming out of this, and I don't know the answer, is right now, everybody comes into games against the Browns and says, Quinshon Judkins is not going to beat us. And that was the case today. 14 carries, 26 yards. He obviously had the 58-yard screen, which was great. Our team's going to try to change up. Because it's probably going to take a little bit. It's probably going to take another game or two of this. Shedur's going to have to be more consistent for this. But if he can punish a team like the Bears, at some point, teams are going to have to back off and stay back and be more threatened by the Browns passing game and give hopefully more space to the running game. The other issue with that is now you're going to have Luke Whippler in there at center. He finished out the game. I thought he did okay based on what I just watched. I don't know for sure. We already got Tevin Jenkins at right guard. We've already got KT Leviston at right tackle. So we are on to the young guys up front, basically other than Joel Bitonio, and Cam Robinson's not going anywhere. So that's the other sort of element to this is what kind of growth can we expect from those guys. Whippler is now going to be the starting center from here on out. Huge opportunity for him because obviously there's hope that he can be an answer at that position, which would lighten the load of what the things the Browns have to do, especially if Posick is done for the year. And if that's a serious enough injury where you're sitting there going, we can't, maybe you can bring him back late in the process as an emergency, but you probably can't sit there and go, well, Ethan Posick could be our starting center next year. I don't think that's realistic. So Whippler gets a huge opportunity. We'll see where Wyatt Teller is at this point with a week-to-week injury, but I suspect they're going to keep rolling with Tevin Jenkins. And then, who knows with Jack Conklin, but it's an excuse for them to continue to get looks at KT Leviston. He's inconsistent at points, but man, I get why they like him. He's just a big galoot out there who's really strong. Will do some stuff that drives you nuts, but I do think he's getting better at that position. Now, I say that, and next week he's going to get absolutely killed. But if you look at what everything on offense, David Njoku went out, so they had Blake Whiteheart in there who did some good things blocking. You're going to continue to have Fannin, Sampson, Judkins. Gage Larvadane's still going to get reps there. This group is getting younger the further we go. Rookie quarterback, third-year center at this point. Tevin Jenkins is a veteran, but he's still younger than he's 27 versus 30. And then KT Leviston's still a young player. So you're getting even younger as we go. That could still result in some major problems, but you understand at least what this team is trying to do. And obviously the other injury that I forgot to mention earlier, Malachi Corley left with a concussion. We'll see how long he's out, but that's one more element they don't have probably next week.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about, sort of the key topic in the chat room. And here are some examples of what we're seeing. This is Dustin Murphy saying, you got to fire Stefanski tonight. This was his pathetic performance. I've held back for years when everyone else was hating on them. How can they continue to play like this and not be held accountable? Running Beard says, Kevin is a class act, but he needs to go. He needs someone who can come in and develop Sanders and draft protection in a whiteout. Let's see here. There's more of that sort of thing in the chat at this point. Now, I get it, Pete. I come at this from the perspective of a fan. If I didn't spend all my time talking with guys like you and the other folks at the OBR, I'd just be frustrated and looking for change. That's exactly where I would be. At this point, we've got a counterpoint here in the chat as well. This comes from Scalise Mayafai, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sure. Cleaning house has historically been the path to continued instability. We've tried that plenty of times over the last 25 years. I'd rather hold on for a year too long than clean house risk going back. I would argue that is exactly what I'm thinking right now. Who out there would want to take the Cleveland Browns job, at this point, without a certain franchise quarterback, with Jimmy Haslam being sort of a mystery to most of us in terms of how he runs the franchise, but not having necessarily the best reputation around the league, that sort of thing. It would seem to me to be putting faith in trying to find a better replacement for Kevin Stefanski seems like a bit of a challenge at this point.
So there's just the problem. The biggest problem the Browns have is there's just so much stuff with this team. Namely, Deshaun Watson's still here next year. The money's not going to be as burdensome as it has been. They're starting to see the other side of that tunnel, but they still have him. He's going to be on the team again.
Yeah.
And to the idea of, well, they can fire him, and again, the record is what it is. You don't need a justification at this point. They've got 6 wins in 2 years. Like, it's easy to say, go ahead and fire him and you're entirely justified. There's no argument to say that you would be wrong to fire him from from an argument standpoint. You win the argument. The question you have to ask yourself is, to your point, who's going to want to come here and coach the Deshaun Watson element? There are going to be some people who don't want to coach the Shooter Sanders element. The Jimmy Haslam element's its own question. Yes, you are going to have 2 picks, and that could be enticing, but you're going to have to build a whole new offense. And I think from that's the candidates who might want the job. The Browns standpoint is the field looks terrible. And I'm not saying there will undoubtedly somebody will come out of this field and be a superstar head coach. It's just how it goes. The problem you're running into is I'm hearing names like Josh McDaniels and Robert Saleh. And I think Robert Saleh is a really good coach, but he was 20-36 with the Jets, and his best win total there was 7 wins. So if you're really telling me, okay, we need to fire Kevin Stefanski, and you're coming at me going, well, we should try this other guy who was a 3-time loser and try to strong arm the Browns into giving him every bit of power, that's where I have a question. And then you're basically going, well, I want insert coordinator. And maybe that's the right guy. So Clint Kubiak, for example, is a popular name. I think he's doing a really good job in Seattle. I have no idea what this man looks like. I've never heard him speak. I could not pick him out of a lineup. He might be the best head coach ever. He might have absolutely no clue what he's doing. But the job of a head coach is not the job of a coordinator. It is completely different. So if you're just saying well, he's a good coordinator, that does not equate to being a good head coach. Or it'd be very easy to hire these people. And there are a lot of people who think Kevin Stefanski is a poor head coach, but he's clearly able to manage the team. He's clearly able to have a level of function that every other coach with this organization since they've come back has been unable to do. The other thing with this is, if you're saying get a coach who can develop Shedeur Sanders, is that not what we are watching right now?
Right.
He just threw for 346. We are watching him try to get better every week, and he's getting slightly better. I thought last week was a little bit of a step back. But if you're saying, well, Shedeur Sanders is the guy we're building around, well, the Browns just took him in the 5th round. If they figured him out and he's the answer, how are you going to fire the people who just took him? That makes no sense. And they're the people who are coaching him and developing him and all this other stuff. in that standpoint, you're sitting there going, well, the Shedeur Sanders is basically the argument to keep these guys in place because the next coach may not want him. So there's that element. But so much of this depends. And again, the question is, what does Jimmy Haslam really want? And all we've been told at this point is we want to see young development. Well, we're seeing young development. It may not be as fast as we want to see it, but we can sit here and say Quinshon Judkins is good. Would you disagree with that at all? To say that Quinshon Judkins is a good football player?
I would not.
Harold Fannin, good football player.
They're both Ohio kids. I'm biased for them, but they've been doing quite well.
You can sit there and we go, Isaiah Bond, I don't know what he's going to be. Gage Larvin, I don't know what he's going to be. And he drives you nuts on special teams. He's an adventure, and maybe he shouldn't be a punt returner. Okay. And if those guys don't work out, they were undrafted free agents. No harm, no foul. And if they can be something, then you've got a bonus. But if the quarterback you like is a rookie and you picked him in the 5th round, then somebody has to get credit for that. And Shedeur, and by the way, Shedeur gets credit too. Should get most of the credit. The lion's share of the credit should go to Shedeur Sanders. He's working his ass off to get better, which is what we want. But clearly somebody has taken time to coach him. And I remember laughing to myself last week when I saw Max Brosmer's stat line and highlights thinking, I bet he would have liked to have some hungry dog reps throughout the season because he looked so bad for that team. So, if Kevin Stefanski has been creating periods of practice for this kid to get extra work that are outside the boundaries of practice, if he's been spending individual time with him every week, a 5th round pick to try to coach this kid up, clearly he's invested in him. You can be mad at him and say, well, Dylan Gabriel wasn't good and he handpicked him and all that. Okay, fine. It's a 3rd round pick. Clearly they're not married to Dylan Gabriel, despite what some think. They got this dude in the 5th round pick with the 5th round pick. And at the time, people were saying, why would you take 2 quarterbacks? This is the reason, because you might get lucky. They took swings. This was the whole point. They took 3 swings. They took 3 swings with his offseason. They took Kenny Pickett with a swing. Ultimately, his injury sort of took him out of him. They recouped the cost. They took Dylan Gabriel with a swing, 94th pick, rich for me, but still swing. And then they trade up to get Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. That was another swing. If they connect on Shedeur Sanders, considering what else they've gotten in this draft, how are you going to sit here and say they need to clean house of this group? Because that means you would have gotten Mason Graham, who looks like a pretty damn good football player, Carson Schweitzer, who looks like the runaway defensive rookie of the year. We already mentioned Fannin, Judkins, and we've got all these other rookies that are running around this young team who are going to be a foundation for this thing. Like, then you're making your own argument to why they should see this thing through, and at least one more year, which would then get you past the Deshaun Watson thing. He'd be off the roster for the 2027 year. You would then hopefully have a much better offense and a place to build from for somebody else to take over and all those other things. Like, I understand the case to fire Kevin Stefanski, and it's an easy case to win. My worry, and I've said this before, is that you're going to be the Tennessee Titans in 2 years, and you're going to see Kevin Stefanski somewhere else and probably not having the level of success that Mike Vrabel has, who stumbled into the potential MVP of the league with the New England Patriots, but is nevertheless went from a guy that was very easy to fire in Tennessee and now is, if he's not the favorite, he's second for Coach of the Year this year with the New England Patriots. Kevin Stefanski's already won the award twice. The dude can coach. My argument is let him figure it out. But ultimately, Jimmy Haslam's got to make that decision and see where we end up.
Yeah, none of the debate that we have on on Kevin Stefanski means a thing, because it's Jimmy Haslam is going to make the call. And to me, that is essentially random. I have no idea what he's thinking at this point in time. I have no idea what his thought process is even like, other than he says candid a lot. And, we can go in any potential direction. Getting a lot of, got a lot of comments. You, Pete, apparently are insufficiently complimentary to Shedeur Sanders for some of the folks in our chat.
Never going to be enough. I could say he played great, good enough to put the team in position to win, did everything we could want from a rookie quarterback in this game, and it will never be enough. So, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. People want to tune in and say I'm quote his biggest hater. Okay, I'm here for that. Because God only knows stuff I've said about Shedeur Sanders. I supported the pick when it was made because I thought it was a smart thing to take 2 swings, and especially where he fell in the draft. I thought it was extremely good process for the Browns to say, screw it, let's just take 2 and see what happens, because this is what could happen. Right. Like so much of the worst case scenario is the Browns lose a 3rd and 5th round pick out of this equation. That's the worst case scenario. If you are a team like the Atlanta Falcons, you or the Minnesota Vikings, you may have lost a 1st round pick with your quarterback. I saw JJ McCarthy played much better today. Obviously, Michael Penix's injury situation is terrifying if you're a Falcons fan. Or I'll go the other way. Daniel Jones potentially tore his Achilles. They don't have any 1st round pick for 2 years. When they traded for Sauce Gardner, they were essentially saying Daniel Jones is our guy. And now he has a major, major injury with no real place to go. So the Browns, from a process, again, I'm big on process. The worst case scenario is they give up a 3rd and a 5th. They're still going to have 2 1st round picks. They could still take that big splash at quarterback, or they could find themselves in a situation where they can take big time players at other positions to help the quarterback situation. Like, that is what I want my team to be able to do, and not, unfortunately, put all your eggs in one basket. Now, having said that, if they finish in a position that's bad enough, or they get Fernando Mendoza and then that kid gets hurt, well, that's unfortunately just how the sport can go. But just from right now, in terms of risk reward, 3rd and 5th round pick, okay, especially given what else they got in this draft class. Like, everything else they've done so well with, I can live with them missing on these things. But now we're sitting here, and again, biggest hater, saying that there's life with a 5th round pick at quarterback. Is that enough to bet the franchise on him? No, he's played one really good game with some issues mixed in, but one really good game. He should have won based on his own performance, theoretically. Hopefully he can stack it, because if he does this against the Bears, if he does this against the Steelers, then everybody's going to lose their minds with this kid. If he throws for 350 or whatever it was, for 3 touchdowns and beats the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, people are going to lose their minds. But we've got those 4 games, those 4 data points to continue working. My fear is he's going to, take another step back because he's a rookie and they're naturally inconsistent against the Bears. But hopefully he keeps building on it. We want to see this kid grow and see him get better. And at the same time, if he can do that and the Browns still maintain their draft position, they're in a pretty good spot from that standpoint. Losing sucks, all that. And Jimmy Haslam could come out of this game absolutely frustrated and furious and be like, I'm done with it. And I can't argue with any of that. But if Jimmy Haslam calls me, and he should all the time, I would tell him, like, I totally get it, but like, this is the business we have chosen. Living up with an offense made up of so many rookies put you in this position where you sort of slotted yourself to be bad in a way that can catapult you and get you to be really good. And if they can't deliver you if this group can't deliver you a much better offense over the next calendar year and special teams, then it's easy. Then at least at that point, you're past the Deshaun Watson thing. You're past all this other nonsense. And you're suddenly have a really attractive job for somebody who wants to jump into it, hopefully in a better hiring cycle too.
Right. And, what you say about rookies, I agree with completely in terms of just to expect inconsistency from a team which is so heavily built on rookies, not only from game to game, but even within a game. You have Shedeur Sanders making this beautiful 35-yard pass to Harold Fannin with great touch. I don't see how anybody could look at that pass and say it wasn't fantastic. But a handful of plays later, or a series later, he throws a very ill-advised interception to Xavier Watts. Rookie inconsistency on display. And, I think no matter the level of coaching, those rookies are still going to be inconsistent this year. You don't know what you're going to expect. As a Browns fan, I want to end the season with something definitive about Shedeur Sanders, and it's my fear that we're not going to get it in terms of whether he's the answer or not, because you would like to know how to move forward. I fear a situation like we were in with Deshaun Watson at the end of the 2023 season, where you, as you put it, Pete, if you squint hard, you could almost see a good quarterback there. And then you go into the season and, you didn't say that about Deshaun Watson. I should point that out.
Yeah.
But,
no, I agree. Yeah. That's we don't want, or if you're going to take a maybe, it's going to be with the draft pick at the top of the draft. You know what I mean? Like, that's got to be your maybe. But if you sit here and go, well, we're not going to get, let's say they're all in on Mendoza just because that's the easy way to go. They're not going to get Mendoza, and they go, well, we can call whoever's got the pick, or maybe whatever. We're not going to get there, so we're going to bring in a veteran. My suggestion from here, from this distance, is call the Raiders about Geno Smith. He's got a pre-existing relationship with Shedeur Sanders, which I think would also be valuable. In addition to the fact that I think he's a good quarterback. But if then we're saying, well, we're gonna. And we will know the answer to that before the draft gets here. Like, that stuff's going to happen in March and all that. They're going to know the answer to that particular question much sooner than that. Obviously, the free agency happens first. At that point, then you can go, okay, they're not going to get the quarterback they want, but now we can talk about, hey, maybe they trade down a couple spots or just sit there and go, hey, Carnell Tate, come on down. We're going to draft a bunch of offensive linemen and get this thing to be way better around whoever's a quarterback, because that's obviously a huge thing. And getting another impact receiver, I think, is obviously necessary for this offense. Mm-hmm. If you can get this version of Jerry Jeudy, which I think was there the past 2 games, you're going to be happy. You're going to have another receiver. Hopefully Cedric Tillman's now quality number 3. Harold Fannin hopefully gets better and better, or at least stays just this. If he stays this, I will be very happy. And it just allows you to have a real offense at that point. And then, or if they don't, then okay, we can say we tried, and Kevin Stefanski had every shot and he can't do it, and we got to go a different direction.
Well, I want to welcome into the show Mr. Freddie Greetham. How you doing, Fred?
Oh, I don't know if I'm up or down, to be honest. But
yeah. I think that's a common feeling. Nice display from Shedeur today. Poor display from the defense and special teams. Really a mixed bag from the Cleveland Browns today. But what's the mood? What was the mood down there at the stadium among the media and among the players that you talked to after the game?
Pretty, as far as the team, despondent. How do you lose to a 1-11 team? Well, you're that type of team. It's just same old. They find ways to lose every week. Special teams just keeps killing them, and block punt. You can go back to the opening kickoff, 41 yards. I mean, you talked all week about how great this kick returner is, and you kick it to him. Why don't you just kick it out of the end zone or whatever, and take your chances, giving it to him on 35. But, I thought Sanders played well. He had a terrible interception. He felt a couple bad sacks. But then the last 6 minutes, he showed what you look for in a quarterback, is to be able to lead the team back. And he did what he was supposed to do. 2 touchdowns. I have no idea what the coaching staff is doing, going for 2 twice. I could see, if it's 31-24, you get the touchdown, you say, well, we're going to go for the win. But you backed yourself into the corner when you had to go for 2. I don't get that at all. I didn't get Stefanski's explanation for that. So a lot of questions. I mean, it's just like you just keep coming back to the same thing. They keep finding ways to lose games. And, if I knew any better, it would almost like it seemed like they were trying to lose, there at the end. You're running a double reverse throwback with your running back, for a 2-point play, and you don't have Sanders on the field who, if anything, it's like a basketball player. The guy's just hit 3 threes in a row and you take them out. You know, he was hot. He just hit with a real nice pass to Fannin. How about throwing that again? You know,
Yeah, we had an extensive discussion at the start of the show about the 2-point conversions, and there's
you might be surprised, Fred, that I disagree. I love it. I love everything about it. It's how teams operate. It's how smart teams operate anymore. You're down 2 scores. You like to assume that the 2-point conversion is a 50-50 proposition. So if you take 2 of them, you expect to hit 1. That's going to get you 14. But if you hit the first one, now you're up. You've got 8. You're down 6. The next time you score, you kick the extra point. You're now winning. The Browns don't benefit from tying anything at this point. So we want them to be. I'm making the argument. I want them to be as aggressive as possible. Shedeur Sanders. I don't think it was ever asked. And I don't know if Kevin Stefanski would answer it either. What they were trying to do on the first 2-point conversion that was botched, but the second one was clearly a play they had been waiting for an opportunity to use. I don't know if Quinshon Judkins ever got a chance to answer, or explain, or anything else on what he thought was supposed to happen versus what actually happened. But it was there. If he tosses the ball to Gage Larvin, he walks into the end zone. And so, I completely understand why anyone would be frustrated watching it. And if Kevin Stefanski's fired for it, I get it. But one, I want them to be as aggressive as possible, get those reps and learn from it, because it's all rookies doing this stuff. And then 2, if they're going to lose, they lose fighting and they maintain the draft position that frankly they need. I mean, we can look back at the season and go, there's 3 games they could have that if they just didn't do X, Y, or Z, that they would have won. And then the Browns are 6-7. And
well, I mean, I had the thought at the time that they were trying to lose, or they were like, we don't mind losing, so let's go for 2. It's like, because it just you're just sitting there going, okay, I don't understand what the play calls are or what they're doing in this situation. But yeah, I knew it was all analytics driven, and I get it. If you're successful, I'm all for it. But when I see what I see, a fumbled one and then a double reverse halfback pass to the running back or whatever, I don't even know what they were trying to do. But
yeah, it was just a reverse. And look, here's the thing, and that it's a bottom line in that sense. It's a bottom line business. So if he gets fired for it, like I can't argue with it. But it's also where I would sit here and go, I would sign up for that every time, because if the Browns are good, I would want them to do that every time. If I want them to do things when they're a good football team, I certainly want them to do those same things when they're a bad football team, because they got to learn how to get good. And that's the only way they're going to do it, in my view. Yes, it would have been safer to kick extra points. I get it. I just don't know what a tie does for this team. I think, or playing safe or playing, that way necessarily would have been great for this team. I'd rather put the ball in the hands of guys who we believe or we think are part of the foundation of this team going forward. And unfortunately, that's the thing with the Shedeur Sanders element to this, is whatever happened, whatever they're trying to do on the first snap, the set 2-point conversion, he botched it. We never got to see what they were trying to do on the first 2-point conversion. We got to see what they were trying to do with the second point conversion. I think it was there. I think the fault there apparently lies in whatever communication there is. The Quinshon Judkins apparently didn't know what he was supposed to, or completely forgot, or whatever. That's where you sit here and go, what is going on? But in terms of the play, I want them to call plays that work. That play would have worked if they executed. And that's unfortunately where you live when you have so many rookies on offense. You are trying to execute, and that's why they're bad.
Totally understand. Fred, what did Stefanski say about those decisions? You said that it wasn't all that clear, but before you go, can you tell us what feedback, if any, Judkins or Stefanski were able to provide?
Well, I didn't talk to Judkins. I was in for Stefanski and Garrett and Sanders, and then I went out and did the stand-up. But as far as, he just says the same old thing, like we felt good about the call and we got to do better and we got to coach better, and that whole thing. he wouldn't say whether, he was asked if it was because Sanders fumbled the snap on the first one or whatever happened that he didn't have him in on the second one or whatever. But
he won't answer that, but I will answer for him. Is because they had that plan before the game ever started. That's something you plan ahead. You worked on that throughout the week or the season or whatever, and you picked a spot to deploy it. They did not just arbitrarily decide we're taking the quarterback out for this. That they knew what they wanted to do before that ever happened. So I completely understand why you would ask that, and I don't know why Stefanski wouldn't just say that. That's where I sort of would be like, if I'm Stefanski, I said, look, we plan to do that all season essentially, but he is careful to deflect any blame from anyone else and put it on him. The one thing I will say is 100% on him is when you make the decision to go for 2, that's Stefanski's making that call. And Stefanski's making either the call himself or approving the decision of the play call on the 2-point conversion. Like, I know there was questions asked, well, is Tommy Rees making that call? He may be suggesting it. He may be saying, this is the one I want to run. But Stefanski is absolutely the final say on that. That is absolutely a turn your missile key type of situation before that goes off.
Right. One last thing before you go, Fred. Thanks for hanging on. I know you've got a very busy Sunday evening with all the coverage and the videos you do and the stuff for the Off the Leash for Channel 19. But Shedeur Sanders, how encouraged were you by the performance today?
Well, I think the thing I'm most encouraged about was that I think there was 6 minutes to go and he led them to 2 scores. Obviously it's a bad team they're going against, but one of my complaints when Mayfield was here, it seemed like he never led the team down on winning drives at the end of games, when they had chances. Obviously does that now with Tampa, but that's a sign of a good quarterback. I mean, I know he put him in that position when he had that interception because that led to the swing in the game. They got behind, then Sampson compounded it, turned it over on the 8-yard line, then the block punt, but he still let him down the field. So I think there was a lot of good things. He used his legs, and I think he had 3 first downs running, and so, a lot of good things, a lot of things to be encouraged. I think you got to let it play out. I don't know, if he's the long-term answer. I don't know if you're going to feel like that at the end of the year or not,
Right.
So it's just at this point, it might be a blessing in disguise you lose because you don't really accomplish anything by winning. When it's all said and done,
come on over to my side.
3 wins.
Welcome aboard, Fred. Fred, I'm curious. You obviously, watching this, Shedeur Sanders obviously has a massive mistake. Dylan Sampson obviously has a massive mistake. And even early in the game, the Browns had in the first quarter, there was an opportunity for them to be down 14-0 with everybody infuriated. And then they obviously come up with the Devin Bush interception, which flipped the field and put them right back into the football game. I was curious what you thought of sort of the fight from those 2 players in particular, just the team in general in this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. If you gauge Stefanski by team not quitting, the team doesn't quit. I mean, it's the time of the year where you just start seeing, unfortunately, veteran players get carted off. You see Posick. I think he did an Achilles. So, that's done with the Browns' career, most likely. And unfortunately, and Ward, who knows if he'll come back, calf injury. And, and you just start to see it pile up. But yeah, you didn't see him give up. Like I said, Sanders came back and played well after that big mistake, and Sampson, as well. And, all the way around, it's just, it comes down to what's disappointing, the defense. We talk about how great the defense is. You're playing the worst team in the NFL. They were lower than the Browns, 14.2 points a game, and they had 14 points in the first quarter. and the defense did stiffen and played well until the turnover mistakes and then the avalanche. And I mean, they made Tony Pollard look like Jim Brown, I don't know what he had, 160 some yards, and their rushing defense really got shredded today. And so it seems how it is in the NFL. You look and you expect, Miles will get 4 sacks against this lousy team. He gets 1, but I don't even know. I didn't see enough of the replay, but it looked like there was 5 guys on Ward on that sack, and
Right.
I don't know. I think Miles getting preferential treatment. We kept expecting that to be changed to a half or something, but it stood, I guess. So, yeah.
So far,
when you're looking at it, you're trying to look at some bright side, keep some interest, but now it's Tankathon. That's the new site to look at.
Well, I mean, imagine being poor Alex Wright, who was the second guy there, trying to go over the sideline and argue for his half a sack. As Myles Garrett is chasing history. Myles Garrett's great. I do think he got the sack, but I agree with you that there is an incentive for people to sort of just give him the full sack when maybe it shouldn't necessarily be a full sack. I think he was pretty free and clear on this one, but I think particularly against the Raiders game, there were a couple where you're sitting there going, who wants to be the guy who goes over there and tells Myles, hey, that was my half a sack, and I'm taking half away from you on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Well, thank you, Fred, for stopping by.
All right.
I really do appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Guys. Have a good night.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. All right. Well, I think it's about time for us to wrap up here. As usual, I want to thank all the people who were in our chat room, even the ones who thought we were insufficiently advocating for Shedeur Sanders. You're all welcome. We're all glad to have all of you here. Pete and I will be back with Lane Atkins tomorrow at 7:15, I believe, for Gang of 3. So that'll be fun. Please stop back and join us then, or hit the QR code in the upper left to grab yourself a subscription to the OBR and hang out with us 24/7 on the premium forums. All right, Pete, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for your insight as always. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right. Good night, everyone.